Okay, it's 5 PM. Let's start our Westfield Redevelopment Commission meeting if we can. John, would you take roll, please?
Yes. Linda Noss,
Here.
Bob Beaudry. Here. Jill Doyle,
Here.
Doug Holtz. Doug Holtz. Joe Plankus.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Doug Holtz will be here in 15 minutes. Also, Mike Steele, are you on the line? Okay, we don't have Mike tonight. First thing is a change on the agenda. The LSG update by William Knox will be postponed until the September 19th meeting. Wasn't quite enough time for William to put everything together for tonight's meeting. So that'll be on September 19th. Second item on the agenda is the approval of the Redevelopment Commission minutes. We'll take them one at a time. First one is for June 13th. Are there any changes or amendments to the minutes for the 13th? Okay, hearing none, I'm open for a motion for approval of the minutes for June 13th.
Linda Nass, so moved.
Okay, motion by Linda, second.
I'll second.
Second, Bob Beaudry. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. John, take the roll, please.
Linda Nass,
Aye.
Bob Beaudry,
Aye.
Jill Doyle,
Aye.
Joe Plankus.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Next set of minutes is for June 20th. There is one correction that I saw, which is a public hearing open. They had it at 6:111 instead of 6:11. So we need to make that correction on the minutes. And also down below, under Executive Director, Resolution 10-2022, it should be for a 60-day period. We did not indicate that in the minutes. So that needs to be corrected. And with those two corrections, I move that the minutes be approved.
Second.
Second, Jill Doyle. All in favor? John, please take the roll.
Joe Plankus,
Aye.
Jill Doyle,
Aye.
Bob Beaudry,
Aye.
Linda Nass.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Minutes are approved. Next set of minutes is for July 18th. Any corrections or changes to that set of minutes? Hearing none, I'm open for motion for approval.
Linda Nass, so moved.
Okay, a motion by Linda. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Bob Beaudry, thank you. Second by Bob. John, please take roll.
Linda Nass,
Aye.
Bob Beaudry,
Aye.
Jill Doyle,
Aye.
Joe Plankus.
Aye. Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of claims. Any questions or comments on the approval of the claims list that we have for this meeting?
I guess I have a question, Linda Nass. On the Huntington bond, that the invoice date was 6/8, we were just late getting this on here. I mean, this is one that we know is coming every
Right.
pay
And-
period.
And it was sent to me as part of the packet for today's approval, for this evening's approval. So
Okay,
I don't have a better answer than that.
okay. And then I guess my other question is, in looking at some of these, like the O.W. Crone, those are usually dated around the 11th that he sends those over. So this would have been for June work. And it's on a 7/11 date, and we're approving it today. So there's no way we can speed this up so we kind of know what Crone's been working on in July, even when it's now the middle of August. No?
Jim sends the invoices periodically, so again, when we get the invoice, the clerk gets it over to me and I put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, anything else, Linda?
Nope, just like.
Okay.
I got a question.
See something current.
So on the July 11th, it says OW Crone / Osborne Trails. Do you know what that was for? I mean, 1850.
Yeah, there's details that they provide, Bob, with you.
And I can probably speak to that. This is Jeremy Lawler for the record. Before you tonight for introduction is Osborne Trails EDA, coming up here in a couple items. It's the work, the preliminary work associated with that process. So there's a fair amount of financial analysis that has to take place.
I guess my question is, as an RDC, are we not entitled to see those reports from Jim Treat since we're paying him?
Jim treats, they're sent to the clerk, Bob, that's a standard procedure, and then.
Well, I understand that, but I
What
mean,
what
Jim Treat
specifically are you
generates-
asking for, Bob?
Well, the analysis on that he's presenting tonight on Osborne Trails, right?
Right.
Well, doesn't Jim Treat do the analysis as far as, you know, the TIF and expected revenues? And
As our financial advisor, he does the analysis that supports the financial portion of that document. So what you see in that document is the
Is it total?
product of his work.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And I can explain a little bit more of that, of what it entails once we get into that.
Okay.
And Jim can too. Jim is on the call.
Right, Jim's online too.
Okay.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I'm open for approval for claims.
Mr. President, this is Doug Holtz. I want to let you know that I'm on the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Doug, appreciate it. Please mark them in at 5:06, John, remotely.
Done.
Before a motion is made there, can I ask, because it looks like we're putting Osborne Trails under Eagletown TIF?
Currently, yes.
And would we be doing that like for the next one we get to? Is that what we anticipate?
Probably because it won't generate any increment for probably almost 24 months
Okay.
before it actually, the increment comes back to the city.
That's the closest TIF to Osborne Trail.
Yeah, could have been any, but yeah. Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just wanted to ask about that, and that's what we would expect. Thank you.
Okay, again, is there a motion for approval of the claims for the month?
Linda
make-
Nat, oh, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Jill Doyle, second.
Second, Linda Nass.
Okay, thank you. John, please take roll.
Linda Nass,
Aye.
Bob Beaudry,
Aye.
Jill Doyle,
Aye.
Doug Holtz,
Aye.
Joe Plankus.
Aye. 5-0, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the ratification of current Grand Park use agreements. Matt, if you'd like to make any comments on that, please?
Good evening, Commission members. Matt Trinian for the record, Grant Park. As I do with all meetings, I sent this over the last handful of weeks of agreements. I did receive a question. Linda reached out today via phone to, there was a question about the labeling of one of the documents that said at the bottom, there's a revision date on one of the agreements. Through research and discussion with Linda, it was found that that was a non-sporting agreement. So we have two different agreements that we use at times based on the level of play. The only difference within those agreements comes down to the sporting agreements call out that we are supposed to receive a game schedule 14 days out. The non-sporting agreements, those are pulled out, and similar things along those lines calls for the difference within those two agreements. So the question, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the question just came about why there was a separate agreement, and that was the reasoning.
Why with the 2018 date? Yeah.
Correct. And again, that was the reasoning. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to further evaluate.
So Linda, you contacted him by phone? I thought we were going to use the email so we would have traceability of all
Well, the meeting
questions.
was coming and I was out, so I didn't really have access to that. It was just a quick
Okay,
call and he just explained
please, in the future,
what it was.
let's stick with the email process if at all
Well, I sent
possible.
an email on Saturday and I got no answers to anything, so I just called Matt on this very simple question.
Let's
for-
use
for-
email so the entire
just-
commission members are aware of what the question is.
Just so I understand, you sent me an email on Saturday?
I sent an email Saturday to the 9 people on that RDC.
To myself?
Email. I believe you were
Okay.
on it too.
I didn't see that.
It
so-
wasn't about this issue.
Sure.
It was about the resolution 2022-11. I just had some comments and questions
Gotcha.
and I didn't get.
Okay, I just want to make sure that if there was an email sent to me, if I didn't get it, that we can
Yeah.
follow up to make sure that
Yeah.
we're getting those emails. But
No,
it was not pertaining to the agreements for this evening?
no, it was not.
Gotcha, okay.
Not
just
at
wanted to
all. And
make
I
sure.
wanted this answer before
Certainly.
the meeting. I appreciate it.
Happy to do so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else, Matt?
Nothing beyond that. Happy to answer any other questions that there may be.
Okay. We have a motion for approval of the current Grand Park user agreements.
Linda Nass, I move to approve the ratification of the current Grand Park user agreements, 26 documents, 331 pages.
Okay, I'll second that motion. John, please take a roll.
Joe Plankus,
Aye.
Doug Holtz,
Aye.
Jill Doyle,
Aye.
Bob Beaudry,
Aye.
Linda Nass.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is RDC Resolution 11-2022, Osborne Trails Declaratory Resolution. Jeremy, all yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll call you Linda. Linda, I did not receive an email from you on Saturday either. So just wanted to make you aware of that. If you sent something, I don't know if it got clogged up somewhere or not, but
That's good
I
to
did
know
not
you
receive,
didn't get it.
I did not receive.
Okay.
I can look into that too.
Okay, that'd be great, Chris. I was
Thank you,
looking
Chris.
for- Well, I'm sorry. I didn't, let's see if let me check the date I sent it. Yeah, I sent it Saturday afternoon at 5:24 after I'd finished reviewing this, so. Don't know why it
Very
wouldn't have gone through because Bob Beaudry responded to it. So I don't know why nobody else would have got it.
Well, I'll double check, and we're
That's
not voting
okay.
on anything tonight, but I did want to get this in front of you all for discussion. Resolution 11-2022 would establish an economic development area in the Osborne Trails zoning area. So it is a 55 and older age-restricted community in the south allocation area, is what we call in the document, is a commercial piece as well. So state statute allows us to create an economic development area around age-restricted housing to capture that increment for the use of public infrastructure improvements and other things that are allowable by statute. So this exhibit here, which is in the resolution document, shows the parcels that are included in what would be the allocation area. So the sub-allocation area, as you can see in the document, is titled Osborne Trails Allocation Area, is what you see in yellow. And then the Osborne Trails South Allocation Area is what you see in blue. The blue is the commercial zoning area. Orient you a little better, this is where the new West Fork Whiskey location is. So essentially when fully developed, there will be 600 more single-family residential age-restricted homes in this area that is yellow. Based on our calculations or the financial analysis that O.W. Crone did, we believe this EDA would support between $20 and $25 million worth of infrastructure improvements once it is complete and fully assessed. Specifically with this one, our target for infrastructure improvements is very specific to 191st Street. The 191st Street corridor is very narrow. It's also very busy most of the time, which has been a public safety concern for some time now. Project would be constructed likely in 2 phases, potentially 3 phases. Phase 1 is a boulevard section, so a 4-lane section from the Tomlinson Road roundabout to a roundabout at Grand Park Boulevard that will also enter into this, the Briggs Robinson Woods PUD that is approved and will go to construction to the north of it. So it'll be a gateway into that development. It'll also be a functional intersection for in and out traffic of Grand Park. Phase 2 would then pick up at the terminus of that roundabout, extend through here, and would realign Spring Mill and Horton and 193rd and 191st Street. So as you can see outlined in here in a parcel that is public right-of-way that has already been dedicated as a part of the platting process with the Osborne Trails PUD. Total cost of these projects is in excess of the $20 million, but various components of this would be eligible for some federal funding potentially. We would also like to include a grade-separated crossing very likely a bridge for the Monon over this 4-lane section when that time comes. That too would be a project that we would seek federal funding for. So the intention would be establish the EDA because of the nature of residential development and how this works. We would start capturing increment very quickly, hopefully as early as the first payment in 2023, residential payment. It's important that we get this established now to maximize the homes that are currently under construction because it'll be based on the assessed valuation that they were January 1st, 2022. The total projected AV of the development when it's completed is $180 million of AV that would come to the city. A little different though than a typical commercial TIF is these are all still capped at 1% residential rate. So, but we would get to capture that 1% of the levy for this EDA here. The blue areas are still subject to the same state cap laws as anything else. And again, just getting it in front of you for discussion tonight. We'll bring it back at the next meeting where you all will get an opportunity to, again, ask questions. We would vote on the declaratory resolution, set a public hearing for a later meeting, which you would then consider the confirmatory resolution. Are there questions that I can answer about that?
How many steps in the process, Jeremy, we have to go through?
I'll kick that over to Cam.
Yeah, several. As we've been through this on some of the amendments, and the process for creating a new TIF is similar. It would start with a declaratory resolution and the adoption thereof by this commission. Then it requires an order from the Plan Commission that the declaratory resolution is consistent with the comp plan for the unit. That then goes to the City Council for consideration to approve of that order from the Plan Commission and approve of the changes before it would return to you all for a public hearing and consideration of a confirmatory resolution. Prior to that public hearing, the overlapping units get direct notice, and also we distribute a tax impact statement that analyzes the impact of the creation of this TIF on property tax across those units that OW Crone would likely prepare. So multi-step process. It would likely, at the quickest, if you were to consider this and adopt a declaratory resolution in September, you would likely see it come back to you for public hearing and consideration of confirmatory resolution in October at the soonest. And so long as that process is accomplished in this calendar year, the base allocation date would be January 1 of 2022.
Really is important because then we gain the AV calculation for this year.
For next year.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah, that really, yes, for this year, pay next year.
Right, right.
Yes, okay.
Okay, questions for commission members?
Yes, I have a couple.
Yeah,
Sure.
Go ahead, Bob.
And I'm just going off a few email strings that I've read, but this kind of came to fruition a little bit with conversation you had, I guess, with like some of the city councilors about coming up with a way to help pay for some roads and infrastructure around that area, correct?
It did, specifically 191st Street. We have been trying to find a good financial solution to fund that since Grant Park opened, to be honest. Candidly, we assumed that there would be more commercial development in the area at this point. That hasn't kept to the pace of our projection, so this was the next best thing that I came up with that would give us the opportunity to improve that sooner and get those safety concerns taken care of. But yes, I have talked to all the council members.
And I guess my question is, so I kind of insinuated through the emails that they were anticipating like around a $10 million project and it's doubled. So what is the difference?
So the $10 million number was a number that I provided in those conversations based on a 2013, 2014 cost analysis. So when we first started talking about this road project, the scope of the project has changed quite a bit. I had our engineering team put together a real cost estimate based on today's costs.
Okay.
And that's where we landed.
And it's primarily a senior living,
They don't like to call themselves senior living. They
Okay,
are
but-
55 and greater. It's a very active
I'm in that-
lifestyle
I'm in that.
community.
Okay, so these may seem like a little bit off the beaten path questions, but I'm curious, with it being homes, single-family homes, how does that create gainful employment?
Well, I would.
In
I
the
would say-
declaratory, it says gainful employment. I'm just wondering, and how does it increase the economic well-being? Because under a TIF, I'd have to ask John what the expected payback is, but if we TIF this area, we continue to divert funds away from, the taxing units that receive the benefit of property taxes. So I guess my two questions would be, how does it create gainful employment, and how does it increase the economic well-being of the city of Westfield?
I think that's specific to the infrastructure projects that it's
Right.
going to support. And improvements to 191st Street obviously are great for everyone involved, but also for economic development.
But I mean, are you anticipating that it'll attract commercial development within the area, or is there an anticipated
I do.
timeframe for a payback on this, so the city will start reaping the benefit of the additional revenues? I guess that's a better question for John, or have this been included in the studies that Jim Treat did?
It has. It's hard to project how quickly the residential is going to develop, but the intention is, because we will start generating increment
Right.
almost right away, we will enter into the planning and design phase of 191st Street, and we will issue
Right.
band to bond for construction
Well,
as soon as possible.
And, I understand the whole preface behind it. My concern is if we do see an economic downturn, like we potentially could under the current situation in government, we are committing more dollars that's why I was asking about the Jim Treat deal, because I'm a numbers guy. I want to see, it's easier for me to evaluate things. But to me, and I guess I'll have to do more examination, I haven't made a real determination, but I need to see how committing another $20 million in TIF is going to create the economic benefit within a certain time frame. If it's just not going to until 5, 6, 7 years down the road, it seems like we're kicking the can down the road in doing that. And that's just my concern.
So,
And maybe I'll be proven wrong when I be able to see some numbers, but.
Sure, and I want to make sure that I'm not misspeaking.
Sure.
This process does not commit dollars to anything. The only thing it does is establish the area that will then capture the dollars. If there is any kind of debt or bond issuance or cash expense for that matter, it comes back to this body for approval.
Yeah, that's a good clarification. I would just echo that. Statute requires that as part of this process, there are needs that are outlined in the plan and prospective cost estimates for those. Any item to be funded, any bond to be issued would come back through its own approval process. So this is just for creation of the allocation areas that you see here in the economic development area to be benefited. Any project consideration would be down the road. It's just required to be thinking about and identifying what those needs might be as part of this process.
So if we did, say it ended up going through and it was 10 million instead of the 20 million, and down the road you decide you need more money, couldn't you do kind of like what was done downtown and sub-allocate an area?
Let me make sure
Just a question.
I follow you. Would you ask that again? Because I'm not sure. The sub-allocation area would be, you're changing the boundaries of the
Right.
allocation area and
Right.
changing the timing of when you capture that increment.
yeah.
So yes, that is a tool. Maybe I'll say this broadly. That is a tool that is allowed per statute, yes, if you were faced with infrastructure costs that were less than anticipated.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think, and also, let me get a clarification, Cam or Jeremy, from a standpoint of you're saying that this would be established January 1, 2022, so that means increment that would be paid in '23, we would be able to capture. Is that correct?
Yes.
No,
No?
let me just step in there.
This is
Yep.
Jim Tree.
The sorry guys, it's Jim Treat.
Thank
I've been
you, Jim.
listening, but I'm staying quiet so you guys can continue your discussion. I'm not interrupting, but I just want to correct that. 1122 is the pay 23, that's base. So 1122 is the base date. So anything that's 23 is part of base. What we're capturing by doing this year is anything that's constructed during 22 that is in the 1123 assessment for pay 24 taxes. That's the first capture.
Okay,
And we
answers
have
my
to do that
question.
this year to make that happen. It's still relatively quick because we aren't talking about a 2-year building project for a major, commercial or apartments. But that's what it is fast, but fast in TIF terms, not fast in terms of the cash flow that you'd like to see. So it is 1 year out more. And Bob, there's not a whole lot of complicated, since we're not doing bonds yet.
Right.
The calculations were relatively simple in that we looked at the homes on this map that we're looking at. A lot of those are already developed. So if they were already developed and assessed as of 1122, we didn't capture those, or as assessed as of 1122 or prior. We didn't include those because we wouldn't gather any more improvements. And that's a lot of the time we did in the last couple of months helping John and Jeremy is figuring out by looking at the database that Chris's folks captured off of the website from the county is, well, what's developed and what hasn't been, and how many lots are there left that could be developed or we capture the revenue. This is a relatively new thing. It's getting more popular right now, these residential TIFs based on the age restricted designation. So that was a lot of the time is figuring out, okay, what's already been built and we can't capture, and then how many lots do we think might be developed? And some of them are platted lots that are shown on here, and some of them are these parcels over here that are the big squares that are somewhere between 20 and 40 acres, Bob, that the city believes will be developed and subdivided in the future. So we've got those captured as they get subdivided into presumably the same kind of things here. Age restricted housing, we would capture it. If it's not age restricted, we don't capture it. So that's on the calculation side. We looked at the homes along these streets that were already built and assessed, and based on those values, we assumed that the improvement value would be somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000, including step up the lot value and the new home. And so we used $300,000 per home based upon Jeremy talking to the developers who are Lennar, who own the parcels that are platted as well as the unplatted ones here. They assume there will be 600 more homes constructed starting, from this spring on forward. And so it's very simply 600 homes times $300,000 per home is $180 million in new AV, in new residential AV. But then if we apply a 1% cap to that, that's $1.8 million a year. So the math is pretty straightforward. Now we just have to see all these homes built and when exactly they're going to be built. So that's what I used as a range of, of AV, and that 20 to $25 million is a 22-year bond, Bob. At using that, not all of that 1.8, but a pretty good chunk of it, about 1.4 in debt service is what I was targeting for $20 million. So again, it was just to give Jeremy a good range of how much of these new and developing in terms of identification of all these projects that really need to be done near Grand Park, near this area. But I think it goes back to Jeremy's comment about we thought there'd be more commercial development. Well, if you don't get good roads along these, instead of just narrow county roads, you're not going to have a lot of commercial development. So that's why these road projects are really critical to get funded and why they will spur economic development, but in the commercial side as well as the residential. And But you know, it's cart before the horse. We don't know what it's going to be until we get the roads built, and then we can attract the commercial development. So I hope that answers. I was listening very carefully, so I thought once I spoke up, I'd try to answer as many of your questions as I could in one.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Do we know
Thank
how
you.
many
You're
homes
welcome.
are built already?
So
There's
the,
60.
I was going to add a little
ahead.
bit to Jim's comment. So what you see right here is that are colored and
Yeah.
not yellowed. Those are the homes that were not included in the calculation. Everything else that has a yellow dot is platted but wasn't complete in January. And then the large chunks, this big one up here and these over here, this southern piece just actually came through as a rezone. They are all zoned and have been amended into the PUD to be 55 and older. Based on the calculations that we did from January, the tax bills in January 1, 2022, there were 600 homes that were zoned left to build. So many of them are in different phases of construction right now. Some of them have completed over the year. I think they pulled probably over 100 building permits out there this year alone. That's the urgency to try to get it established.
But
prior to-
how many do they have already completed is I guess what I was asking.
I'd have to look back. There's 230, I think is what
Roughly.
sticks to my mind.
Yeah,
Hang on. I'm right. Yeah, 183.
I was
You're
way off,
close.
but
you're close.
Well, I've got the thing right here from GIS, from Leanne's spreadsheet.
We
So
could-
there's one family developed. That's what she, remember that how
I
she
do.
grouped them all?
Yeah, and
And
we
s-
can certainly provide that information of what has
I mean,
been developed.
Yeah, we
and-
actually have a list of them, Bob, with every owner's name and what the initial AV is. And again, we excluded them because we can't capture it now. It's already been built and assessed, but
Right.
it was 183 lots already. So coming up to 200. So there's quite a bit of activity
Yeah,
already.
okay.
Okay, this is Linda. So then we're saying 600 more. And just to make sure I'm understanding, this is 600 more to be completed and assessed. So they could still be completed this year and assessed either January 1 or in future years.
Correct.
Yeah.
So anything that's
Yeah.
that was not assessed in this last assessment of
Yes.
2022.
Or a partial assessment. for that.
Okay, and then, so then the people who are already completed, are they or are they not part of the FAIR Act 55 and over? They still are, and it's
They are, but-
enforceable upon them because they're in that HOA, and that's,
So they
What
are
is-
part of that age restricted, but they are not part of the TIF allocation area.
right,
Because they were complete already, so there's no increment for us to capture. So we didn't
Right.
include them. I don't know what you mean by having something forced onto them.
no, I
What do you
just
mean by
mean, are they all in this neighborhood treated similarly except for the assessment times? Because in reading that, what is it? 42 US Code 3607.
Okay.
Who read and studied that? Was it Cam? Who can explain
wasn't
how
me.
that affects this neighborhood? Because does it affect the existing homes or just the ones we're talking about now in the future?
Yeah, both. The
Okay,
state
that's what I wanna
statute that
understand.
allows for age-restricted allocation areas incorporates that code by reference. So
Yes.
these are homes which are restricted by, I think it's a covenant or a deed restriction for 55 and older
They said covenant.
for that purpose that's outlined in the federal statute, yeah.
Okay,
But that's how this entire development has been conceived. And so I think that would apply, regardless of the allocation area, that would apply to all the homes to be built as part of this development.
okay.
And so when you say how they are treated, what do you mean by that? Like, how,
They're all under the 42 code US 3607. They're all under that because that's the Fair Housing Act for 55 and over.
okay.
All
Yeah,
of the
Yep,
homes.
but none are treated different from a tax perspective. They're all paying the same tax bill that they always
Right.
would.
Anything that's been fully assessed prior to now will not be under this allocation.
It will not be
TIF.
captured in
It'll just be
the
anything from
allocation
here on
areas,
out.
correct.
Okay, and then in reading over your plan, and I think I asked some of these questions in my email, I'm reading on the Osborne Trail South allocation area and then the other allocation area, there's the same 11 items listed in the project description. And I appreciate when you talked about proceeding in phases, and I took notes on that. But there's 11 items: construct, reconstruct, or relocate and extend sewer lines. Number 2 is water lines. Number 11 is electrical and gas infrastructure. So one of my questions was, and then I think, let's go back up to, also stormwater drainage is number 6. So how does this affect Citizens and Duke and Citizens Gas? Are we putting into this allocation and the project and the TIF fund amount of 20 to 25 million to literally construct these sewer lines and
No.
water lines?
No, so those are
Then what do those
eligible
mean?
expenses.
Pardon me?
Those are eligible expenses, things that the monies could be used for. We're not committing money to anything. Right now, we have an idea. We will
But you're
come
saying
back
could
later.
be.
Could be, but you won't see me come and support putting in gas lines or water lines or sewer lines.
And that's why I hate to see it even listed in here that we could, because I'm like, because I wondered what Citizens, I thought when we sold to them, they committed that they're supplying water lines, sewer lines, Duke.
So they've already ran the water and sewer down that right-of-way section.
Yeah,
So that's already existing in the future right-of-way.
Right.
So there's nothing that could be committed there. The developer puts in the water, sewer, gas, everything
to
associated
each
with
individual.
the
Yep.
residential development. We are talking about building the road and putting in sidewalks.
But there's 11 things here and only
Sure.
one is the road.
Yeah, the reason, so the statute, again, requires a sort of a list of potential expenditures. And certainly anytime that you build a road and there needs to be a relocation of a utility, sometimes there's a cost of that is borne by the project. And if we didn't put those things in there, even if there's not a plan right now to spend X amount of dollars to relocate a gas line, if that's not in there, then we have to come back and amend it so that that could be a project cost. So the incentive is to be broad with this description when you're first declaring the allocation area, so that you don't have administrative issues down the road. And we know that all of those things can come to bear in an infrastructure project like this. So wanted to be inclusive of that. It's, again, not a commitment. It's just an open universe of potential aspects of the infrastructure to be funded by the allocation area, should you vote to create it.
And
So
the
that-
language says may, Linda, so
I understand.
it's not an obligation. because
I
it
see
says
where
may.
it says may, but does that mean that the developer can come to us and say, hey, you guys use your money to do that?
They always can, and you
Yeah.
can always say no.
I know,
They could, but our construction standards require that they install
but
them
it doesn't say reconstruct or relocate. It says construct and extend, and those are terms that.
Maybe I can help by saying.
I get you're saying may, but sometimes we see things happen that we didn't think were gonna happen.
We can change those. Nothing in here.
We're still
presupp-
discussing.
Yeah, yeah, we'd certainly reword that if that sounds better to you all. This is your resolution. But I will say, there's nothing in there that is a signal to any developer, any utility company that you're gonna pay for something. This is you can if you choose to. And it's best to have that broad so that you have flexibility later as a commission.
Okay, and then I'd like to ask, did you consider or think about, and not that I'm promoting this, did you consider putting the Wood Briggs development into an EDA or into this EDA? Because you just showed us the picture of taking that road, and you said the main thing was the road. Well, it goes all the way down there too. So what
did
was the-
not, quite honestly, given our political environment, I thought it was a stretch to even get this put into an
Yeah, I
EDA.
think it's,
So I wasn't going to extend it beyond. I can tell you that the developers requested that, the residential developer that owns the rest of those lots has asked for it so that there is a way to fund the road improvements that come and impact the whole area. If
and
there's
West Fork Whiskey will be in this EDA.
It is in the EDA. Once some of that abatement starts rolling off, that'll flow into the EDA as well, plus whatever. It's a separate allocation area, but can still be used for the same purposes. And those other two blue lots, which are zoned commercial, can also they have to be captured differently. Cam can explain it. The residential and the commercial have to be captured in separate allocation areas because they fall under different statutes.
And since this is a PUD, Osborne Trails is a PUD, I'm just asking a lot of hypotheticals because we've, this was originally passed years ago now, okay? The PUD for Osborne Trails. So in the future, as has happened in other ones, when they come forward and go, well, the market's changed and we can't build these single families and we want to put, multifamily in there, is that even a possibility once we go this route? Is there a rezone possibility?
Multifamily can also feed into the TIF as well, as
Okay.
a 2%er. I would tell you that this has just been recently updated from a PUD perspective. So if they come back and ask, council and plan commission, everybody else has every right to say, no, you can't rezone.
Separate approval path for that.
For the rezone?
If there were, yeah.
However, they could be part of a capture in this EDA as
Certainly.
multifamily.
Yes, that's taxed as commercial property and can be captured.
Yeah, but they could have been anyway without the single family.
If that were to happen, you'd probably want to amend this
Mm-hmm.
because of the distinction between age-restricted housing TIF, which is a
Yes.
separate statute, as Jeremy just mentioned,
Yes.
versus commercial. We would want to change those boundaries such that any multifamily would be captured in the commercial allocation area.
Part of the TIF.
Yes.
Okay, and let's see, I had a lot of notes in the margins here. I was glad you explained that map because I thought we were missing a map in here. Let's see.
What are the road impact fee implications? I mean, are there the road impact fees
They
involved?
still pay them. Yeah.
They still do?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just wondering, because they're probably selling real well, this is a highly desirable area.
Mhm.
I mean, what's the stop, I mean, the developer is in the business to make money. Why, I mean, they're gonna continue to build them out anyway, whether it's TIFed or not. I'm hypothetical too. I'm just wondering why we would consider TIFing it when they're gonna go ahead and build it anyway, and those tax dollars will flow through like immediately without the diversion.
They will, but they'll also be divided by all the different taxing entities. So this
Correct.
allows us to capture the maximum that we can
Okay.
to expedite the infrastructure improvements.
And would I be correct in thinking that when these bonds come forward, that document's gonna say that until the TIF is sufficient, we're gonna pay this out of lit or something else?
I have no
Yeah.
idea what that is,
We haven't
but yeah.
decided that yet,
Yeah,
Linda.
we were.
We are not that far
Premature
along.
on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
Jim, but that
It
always
depends
is,
on how much time goes between now when we start with, if we get far enough along during the planning process and before we're ready to bid the projects and stuff, we may have a really good idea of what the TIF is going to be, and maybe even a year's worth of, experience that might help us market it without a lit or property tax backup. We'll just have to see what the market is and what the timing on things is. So I don't want to rule it out, but yes, generally speaking, on a new TIF, we do some kind of a backup to make sure that it's
yeah, we have to, because the TIF
Yeah.
isn't there.
And it's a
But,
lender requirement.
But if, as Jeremy said, and I think others understand that the priority out there is to get 191st Street done. I think you said that. I think others on the council have talked about that. But to add in, there's also something that I didn't mention was, one of these, number 10, is construct or reconstruct parks and other recreational facilities. Are we referring to something in the neighborhood there, or?
No.
What does
Public
that refer
infrastructure
to?
only is the only thing we're referring to.
Is what, excuse me?
Public infrastructure?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was good to understand that. But my concern is still that I thought, and I could be wrong, but I thought there was discussion of the county putting some money towards 191st Street. I think members of the council have said, find some money to build 191st Street. We certainly can't wait for 5 or 6 years till this TIF comes in, so that's why we're gonna sell the bonds and pay them off somehow, right? So we can start this construction
We
ASAP.
We have to design it first.
Yes,
So that's the first step. We
And
get
then
this
you-
established, and then hopefully there's enough increment coming in to be able to pay to design it.
And you said perhaps we can get federal dollars. Have we
In
gone
portions
that
of it.
direction?
We've
to
certainly tried.
Search them out
We
yet?
put in the realignment in partnership with county last year, and it did not score well. The bridge is the other piece. So right now, as it is today, the T intersection at 191st Street in Grand Park is not a full access intersection. So in order to really score well in from an MPO or federal perspective, you have to fall into one of these buckets. The best one is congestion mitigation and air quality, CMAQ. There are also transportation dollars and other things to do. However, if I applied for that today and we got money for it, it's 4 years from now before we can build it.
Yeah, I realize that too.
Yeah, so in a situation like this, if we have the EDA and the increment is beginning and we can forecast it, we can do a band to bond situation like we have on other places. So a bond anticipation note to get the construction started sooner.
And then you, at that time, you would set up the priority of what you're gonna build first, second, third, and fourth, and
I will
how
tell you the
the
priority right now.
phases, because you said the 4-lane,
I will tell you the priority right now. Priority number 1 is roundabout right here.
is roundabout.
Yes, and with that same priority, if at all possible, is the boulevard section from the Tomlinson Road to this entrance. That is
Anything through MPO on that available?
No, not anytime soon.
Okay,
We can
go ahead.
continue to wait for that. Well, to put that in perspective, we are all very familiar with the congestion issue right here at 181st and Wheeler, which I would say is worse than this intersection up there. We've put that in twice and not received funding. We're going to try again. And we're also working for ways to fund that separately as well so we can build it. But that is the magnitude of the competition for federal dollars. So phase 1, back to my original statements, phase 1, roundabout and boulevard. Phase 2, realignment and boulevard. Phase 3, really where we need to focus our energy for federal funds, is this bridge.
How much do you anticipate it would cost just to do the planning stage? Is there a projection?
It depends on how we break it down. My assumption is we will need to design in 2 phases as well from a financial perspective. This phase, I would say, and don't hold me to it because we don't have
Just
quotes, we don't
ballpark.
have anything like that, I would say roughly $600,000.
Okay, I guess my question would be, if there seems to be a sense of urgency to this project, why wouldn't you designate some of the TIF dollars we already have laying in way? I mean, we're carrying a substantial balance right now, which I know are earmarked for future projects, but why couldn't you utilize some of that money to at least get the planning portion of this rolling along? I mean, the money's sitting there.
It's certainly possible.
And I mean, if you got it earmarked for projects 3, 4, or 5 years down the road, you know, and this thing goes through, then you just replace it as the TIF dollars roll in, because you're saying 5, 6 years from now. I'm just saying, you've got money sitting there that's accessible to get projects going. That's a viable option to tap into.
I don't disagree with you. We do have money there. That money is generally allocated. There are lots of conversations about what happens with those money, including how you all potentially could pay back the city for the $6 million loan, we'll call it.
Yeah.
All of those things are up in the air.
And
So-
for me personally, which I was going to ask John at some point, I mean, if we had some kind of report that showed where some of these dollars were earmarked for, it would help, like at least me and probably I think everybody, know in advance so we wouldn't ask redundant questions like, well, we can't do that because we're committed here, we're committed here. But at least we would know where we could say, hey, you could, you know.
Isn't that it?
Yeah, we provided it.
Everybody
it's
got a
earmarked.
copy of this. That shows you on the back of everyone where the funds are going to be allocated for the next 5 years.
It doesn't show where the balances are gonna be allocated. It just shows the year by year in and out, but it doesn't show the
Right,
balance.
well, it shows a balance at the
Yeah,
bottom here.
Well, hold on, hold on.
Available.
But it
at that
doesn't show
point
what
in
the
time.
projects are earmarked for. is what
right,
I'm
but we
saying.
don't know why,
Well,
for
there's
example,
bond
we have
payments,
4
there's other-
million in this TIF.
there's
or
other
I know,
3
I
million
know,
in
but
that.
I was just saying, seeing it in some kind of a. Priority order. Yeah.
Yes,
Well, that's another, yeah, that's.
So
another-
that-
I'm just saying it would help
that-
me
yeah,
to
that-
understand, you know.
That
That's another way
priority
of doing
list is the list of priorities that we received from council,
Okay.
and then put them in the order that we kind of got feedback from. I'll be honest with you, if we were 3 years ago, I would have a whole list of what I think is good and in this order. But anymore, it doesn't matter what I think. So someone else needs to prioritize the list and tell us what you want to do, so I know where to put resources and work toward the goal that the elected officials and the appointees want.
Well, I would think if you put a list out, then you could get.
The list is right there.
The list,
Okay, then
the
you should be able to
capital
have a
list is out.
conversation and set a
Happy
priority.
to sit down anytime.
Yeah, we were gonna do that before. Another question, on a little different subject. I don't want to cut any of you off if you have
That's
questions
okay.
ready.
Go ahead.
Okay, on this program, okay, which it doesn't increase school-age population because the aforementioned restrictive covenants prohibit any person under the age of 19 to live in a home more than 3 months out of in a year. This restriction will be enforceable for the homeowners association as well as the city. So I guess I have a question on how can and what can the city enforce in these over 55 restricted, over 55, because I understand only one person over 55 has to live there. You know, they're probably maybe not the same program, but there's tons of these in other states like Florida and Arizona. And then the people move in there and go, where did all these kids come from? Because they may not be living there, but they're being babysat there, and then they have to go to school from there, so the bus is still going through the neighborhoods. But if there are any issues with this program, the fair housing program, who does get to enforce this? Where can the city step in? Or is it up to the HOA or?
The burden is put on the HOA, and to answer your question further than that, I would suggest you talk to the plan commission and the folks that zone it and the councils. I don't know. Do I think the city's gonna go out there and kick people out of their houses? Probably not.
Not if they're in a TIF. I mean, we're gonna need people to stay there.
Yeah, the age of the people that live there doesn't impact the TIF. If they were to lose some sort of classification, it was, I think, where you're going with that, then I'll
Hardly.
defer to Cam, but I think the TIF would need to change.
Yeah, it would. I mean, what you have here is, there is a separate housing TIF program that's existed in statute for some time.
Yes,
This was, I mean, there's a little bit of my color commentary here, but this was an effort, a lobbying effort from developers of these age-restricted communities to say, look, we are, by virtue of restricting the sale of these homes by deed and covenant restriction, we're not affecting school populations. You should allow this to be designated as an allocation area and used to fund infrastructure that helps people get to and from our developments. And the legislature, the General Assembly said, okay. So we have this program. And it does incorporate reference to the federal fair housing statute, et cetera. All of that in the context of an allocation area to mean if you have one of these neighborhoods that's gone through all the entitlements needed, so it's got the zoning, it's got the federal designation, all of those things which are adjudicated and administered separately, then it can be declared by a redevelopment commission to be an allocation area. So certainly none of that enforcement is at the commission level. It would be more at the planning level. There's probably a federal agency that would have something to say about it, and the HOA level. But all of that's how the project was entitled to begin with.
and
be
this is our
developed.
first one of these and the only one we're considering at this point, correct?
Correct.
And if the HOA members sue the HOA, that's their own problem.
Correct.
But,
Correct.
and unfortunately, that happens way too often around here,
It does.
unfortunately.
Oh, I
So,
think, Linda, that
don't want to do
Pul-
this
yeah,
before it's.
Pulte is doing a Del Webb community, 151st in town, and that's an age restricted, if I'm
It
not,
would be eligible for this statute as well.
that
It
would be
is,
eligible.
it would
for-
be eligible for.
It would be,
okay,
but we haven't entertained
but we
doing
haven't
anything
done
with it.
that,
No.
right. It'd be,
This only came about simply because it was a one good way to find funding for 191st Street improvements. That is the sheer baseline of the intention.
okay.
Okay, any other questions?
I would just say keep the money down.
Okay, there's one correction on the front
we have to.
page. is Hamilton County reporter instead of recorder. We need to correct that one page. Other than that, I think I did not see any other typos in the body of the document.
I will say that I did not intend for there to be a vote tonight, and I don't expect there to be one, but we are in a tight time frame, knowing that this will come back through several other times to other bodies. If you all would like to take a vote, you certainly won't hear any like adverse words from me. But thank you.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve Resolution 11-2022 so we can stay on the timetable that's been laid out in order to be able to capture the increment that we're looking to capture. Do I have a second?
This is Doug. I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comments, commission members?
Yeah, then I'll want to go through all the other questions that I have about this, because I thought we were going to have another month to go through and ask some more questions, so.
Okay, fine,
you want-
go ahead, Linda.
Okay, all right. So I don't like this the way it's said, and you just said that we could change some things in the numbers 1 through 11. The fact that this, I think we're missing, perhaps missing a map. And then when we get down here to,
Which map, Linda?
well, it said to go to Exhibit B for a map, but there was no map there.
Yeah, it was I apologize. I probably should have caught that too. It was it's the blue section included in Exhibit A.
Yeah, but it's referenced somewhere else in
Oh,
here
we
to
also
go,
need the parcel list.
to go to B, and it's not there, so,
And
yeah.
those will certainly be amended when it comes back for the confirmatory resolution.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're going to approve it like this. You also said, there was other things that we could consider, and a motion and a vote tonight certainly wouldn't allow that. But this plan includes, let's see here. We're talking about, like Bob said, gainful employment, but we haven't seen a report, whereas that was estimated. I'd like to see that report, where it says it will, in section 2 of the south allocation area, which is the south allocation area, the blue?
Yes.
Okay, that will provide needed senior housing that the city currently lacks. I don't think that's in the south allocation area.
So
So is some of this verbiage in the wrong place, and it should just be under one allocation area and not the other one?
I think for the interest of just clarity and simplicity, I would ask that you remove your motion. We'll go back, we'll do all these things, and we'll bring it back at the next meeting.
Okay, I'll remove the motion as presented.
And how would you
Does
like
Doug
me
need
to
to
ask some of
remove
my
his?
other questions then?
Go ahead, Lynn. I mean,
Well, I
you
don't
got
know if we
questions-
want to take all the time tonight, but I
Well,
think.
yeah, but I mean, if you've got questions, whatever we have.
For me, Linda,
in front
it's
of
gonna
us,
be a
we
whole lot easier if you put them in an email and send them to the group that we can,
Okay.
so I can
Because,
digest
I
them.
saw things like that, and I thought, well, this shouldn't be under the south, it should just be under the other one, and,
That's
That's a
fair.
good suggestion, Jerry. Email
okay.
will give us
So
that.
I've got several marks, as you can see.
Please, by all means, mark them up, send them to the group.
I will
We'll
do
get the
that.
team together to fix them or answer them or whatever we need to do, and then we'll bring it back to you all.
And it's coming back at the next meeting, so
Come back in
probably.
September.
I would like to come back as soon as possible.
come back
I
in
still have to
September.
work out the timeline
Okay,
on the back end, so I may ask for a special meeting between now and the
September
next
19th, yeah.
council meeting.
well,
Yeah.
as you said before,
meeting at
maybe
all,
we
right?
should meet with you. I was thinking,
Yeah.
maybe I should talk with you or Jim Treat on a few questions that I had.
Sure, we can all three meet. I'm
We can
happy
do
with that.
that.
and I'll be happy to drag Cam in as well.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, thank you, I
Okay,
appreciate
good.
that.
Thank you, Jeremy. Good suggestion. Okay, anything else
Okay.
that we need to cover in additional business, John or Cam?
No.
We're covered? Okay, I have a motion for
Wait,
adjournment?
just a minute, did we,
Oh, I'm
were we going to have comments on the 201 Mill Street? The minute said we were gonna forward that to this meeting. Was there anything to forward to this meeting?
Nope, I
No.
pulled it from the
Nothing?
agenda. I'm waiting for council to make a decision on how they want to handle that property. And then
And as far as the RFP Grand Park, there's nothing for us to know at this time.
there's nothing
Is that
to know.
correct?
Correct. Other than proposals were received, there were 7 different proposers. And
Okay.
once we get the committee together and get things rolling, right now, they don't know who they are. In fact, I don't know who they are. There'll be more information that comes out. We are months away from any kind of recommendation to this body.
Okay. And then, and something I was noticing that's still on our website is we have these 4 parcels in Grand Park available for sale. Call the Economic Development Director. Since Grand Park was moved to the RDC, is anyone actively marketing these? Is this still real? This is a page off the website.
They are properties that we own. I'm certain that Kai Chuck, which is the Economic Development Director, sends those for certain proposals that he does. I'm not familiar with any specific that's coming up. But certainly before it was sold, it would be sold, it has a whole process attached to it. And
So if
given-
you're interested in any of these, you would still contact the Economic and Community Development Department, like it says?
Yes.
yes, Kai Chuck, yeah.
Just asking. And was this considered in the RFP or in any? will
I
it
can
be
assure you that any
considered?
inquiries that we would have right now are paused for communication.
Okay.
Until this is all done.
All right, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
I don't think
Okay,
so.
if not, I'll move that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Bob. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Voice vote?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Poor Jeremy was on
Okay, don't go away. We got some stuff to sign. I want to
Signatures,
make sure.